around succession and throne ascension. The outcome, few legal battles, reduced communal tension, and enhanced legitimacy for our royal fathers. And most critically, we do not interfere. We trust the custodians of tradition to manage their own succession process. This principle of non-interference has fostered dignity, autonomy, and internal cohesion. But of course, this journey has not been without its challenges. I was only maybe 4 months or 5 months into office. The Supreme Court removed a first-class traditional ruler, Eleruwa of Erua, November 2019. And you know that me, before that my assignment, I was never anything politically, never anything in public service. So it was a baptismal of fire for me. When they removed the Kabiyesi, I said, okay, what do we do? I started calling everybody. And 5 years after, 5 years plus after, just I think 2 weeks ago, the same person was reinstalled as the Eleruwa of Erua. But we lost 5 years for nothing. So if you reduce tension and we integrate the traditional institution into the governance architecture, all the money is wasted going from the lower court to the Supreme Court, and the tension within our communities it may not evaporate completely, but will be greatly reduced. So some of the impediments that we continue to face include jurisdictional conflicts between traditional institutions and local government council. We even have an ongoing conflict because we're introducing the traditional council and people are fighting all over the place. History. Some will say, oh, the Oyo kingdom that you were talking about before now was not in this particular Oyo that we see today. That Oyo kingdom was somewhere close to Kwara. I was like, okay, so how do I engage the Kwara state government to reestablish that Oyo kingdom when Nigeria has been divided into 36 states? But I know we will overcome with sincerity and constructive engagement. We also have the issue of political capture, where titles are wielded as tools for political allegiance, thereby eroding neutrality. And finally, we have lack of constitutional clarity, which leaves traditional rulers vulnerable to political goodwill rather than protected by a legal structure. I've had the honor of installing almost all first-class obas in Oyo State. I installed Olubada, I installed Alaafin of Oyo, I installed Showon of Ogbomoso. I've just installed Eleruwa. I installed Akure of Shaki. I installed Ashenyi of Iseyin. But we did not use any of those for political patronage. As a matter of fact, when I was going to install Akure of Shaki, somebody very close to me in government came and said, this Akure, he's an APC man, no, don't let us install him. I called the Commissioner for Local Government and Chieftaincy Matters, and I said, Kini what's up? Let come out for money. Okay, I signed it. Go and install him. So we installed him. But during the election, APC won in Kabiyesi's jurisdiction. It didn't mean anything to me because whether PDP, APC, the country is ours. The state is ours. So still, these challenges do not diminish the value of our traditional institutions. They simply point to the need for thoughtful reform and a more coherent national policy. Indeed, when respected and empowered, our traditional institutions deliver measurable impact. And I'm not saying this to patronize or to flatter traditional rulers here. I'm saying it because that has been my own experience in government. They help resolve conflict at the community level, often preventing escalation to violence. So in Oyo State, we have institutionalized alternative dispute resolution mechanism that work hand in hand with our traditional institutions. I get less calls because anything banshele in any state, they will say call the governor. But me, because our traditional rulers, they are filling that gap. I sleep longer, I get less calls. 2, they are vital to community policing. The call has seen significant success, partly because our traditional rulers support and mobilize their communities around the initiative. Finally, and just to buttress what I just mentioned, in Oyo State, there's a place in Kajola local government. Okay, we had a security breach. They robbed a bank. And we're looking for clue. And from the traditional institution at Okeo, they were able to tell us that, well, these people came into this community to rent an apartment for, almost 6 months prior to when that robbery incident occurred. And we were also able to know that these people, they were not Fulani elders, but they were people from Kogi State. Because our traditional rulers, they went deep into that community and facts came out, and we've been able to plug that loophole. We've taken corrective measures, and since that incident, none again has occurred in Oyo State. So finally, they encourage development ownership. Many of our tourism sites in Oyo State, such as Akure Lake, Idere Hills, are community-run under the stewardship of traditional leaders. So our efforts to attract investment to these areas are not aimed at taking them away from their custodians, but at unlocking even greater opportunities for local development. So what does the future hold? The relevance of traditional institutions must be recalibrated, not politicized, but purposefully integrated into our broader development systems. And that means, as a nation, we have to do the following. 1, reforming legal frameworks to provide clarity on the roles, rights, and recognition of traditional councils. 2, strengthening our security architecture to formalize community policing, and the strategies must be rooted in the traditional structures. And 3, elevating cultural diplomacy and tourism, placing our traditional institutions at the heart of heritage, arts, and youth engagement. So in a country as richly diverse as Nigeria, we do not need fewer institutions. We need stronger, smarter partnerships between the old and the new, between the traditional throne and the modern office, between the Oba's palace and the policies of government. True nation building for Nigeria is not about how much oil Nigeria produces. I read in today's newspaper, I think Punch or Tribune, as we're flying in from Lagos. How they said Nigeria has exceeded its OPEC quota. What do you mean? Yes, we're rich in natural resources, but we're poor in managing our resources. So true nation building is not about people telling us, oh, we don't have any business with poverty because we produce this much oil. Oh, because we have lithium, because we have solid minerals. No. There are 3 things that must go with all of those for poverty to be tackled in our environment. You must have entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs must come. Government cannot employ all the people. You encourage people that will, entrepreneurs that will employ the people. You need also knowledge and skills. This place, I was talking to the person sitting next to me as we were driving in here. I said to him that in 1979, I believe, 1979 or 78, I came here, this particular campus. It used to be the Federal Polytechnic, Akure, this particular campus, to take a form for my immediate older brother. Now this place has changed from Federal Polytechnic Akure to Federal University of Technology Akure. But some people were fighting me that you cannot change Polytechnic Ibadan, you cannot change the name. So what if it becomes University of Technology. We should still call it Polytechnic Ibadan. So true nation building is not about how much oil we produce. We must do those three things: have entrepreneurship, knowledge and skills, and intensive production. People must go to work. The students, as they are coming out, they must be engaged. And our economy cannot be down at 7 p.m. At 7 p.m., onikaluku ti wọnú ilé wọn lọ. But in other places, they do 3 shifts of 8 hours every day. And we said we shouldn't have anything to do with poverty. So it is about the strength of our institutions, their ability to serve the people justly, and the legacy they leave behind. So I'll end by saying that let us continue to build that legacy together. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It's been a moment with you. Thank you very much for that keynote lecture. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate you for coming and celebrating with us in Akure land. Thank you very much. That was the governor of Oyo State, His Excellency, Engineer Sheyi Makinde, FNSC. Thank you very much, sir. And so, would like to move on quickly. I know that the discussants are ready for today's colloquium, whose topic is Roles of Nigerians' Traditional Institutions in Nation Building, Impediments, Impacts, and Prosperity. And if you're just joining us, I'd like to run through the identification of the discussants. We have on the table this afternoon Dr. Festus Adedayo. Thank you very much for coming. He's flanked by Professor Adedayo Afe. Thank you very much for also coming. We have the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Ondo State, Dr. Kayode Ajulo, CONSAN. He's also one of the discussants. We have His Excellency Ambassador Good News. Odatiwa Women Initiative, can I please plead with you? Can I please plead with you to be seated and enjoy this lecture? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mo mọ̀ pé orin pọ̀ ní kún yín tẹ́ fẹ́ kọ. Ẹ ní sùúrù. Thank you very much. Thank you. And so we're going to be moving on to the colloquium proper. For this colloquium panel session, the discussants will move to their table so we can kickstart that. And to moderate this session, I have the honor of inviting our own Kábíyèsí Ọba Olúfálàì, the Olu of Ìlú Àbò. Ẹ ṣé Kábíyèsí o. Kábíyèsí o. He's going to be moderating this session. Now, just to take a brief moment to quickly acknowledge about 2 people who just stepped in. I realized that the former Commissioner for Energy and Mineral Resources in Ondo State, Engineer Razak Obe, is in attendance. Thank you very much for coming. A warm round of applause for him. We also have the Honorable Commissioner, Local Government Service Commission, Mrs. Bronke Gloria Ojo. She's in our midst. Thank you very much for coming, ma. And so I'd like to also use Nurse Ariola Adamolekun, beg your pardon, as a point of respect to members of the hospital Management Board of Ondo State. Thank you very much for coming. I also noticed that Senior High Chief Shola Adegbomire, the Asai of Akure land, also stepped in whilst His Excellency was on the microphone. Thank you very much for coming, sir. And so with a warm round of applause, I'd like to hand the microphone to the moderator of this colloquium panel session. A warm round of applause for His Imperial Majesty, the Kabiyesi Oba, the Oba of Iluabu, Kabiyesi Oba Olufalaye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Your Excellency, the Governor for your state and lecturer for today, Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, represented by my brother sitting to my left, all the Excellencies, our Royal Fathers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm very, very happy that the organizers of Kabiyesi's 10th-year celebration have chosen this topic of the role of the traditional institutions, impediments, challenges, etc. Because this is a problem Nigeria has been struggling with since independence. Do you completely jettison the traditional institution, or how do you integrate it into governance? When we were at the National Conference in 2014, where I had the privilege to have been elected as the chairman or leader of all the Yoruba delegations, we did everything possible to get traditional rulers incorporated into the draft constitution. The truth is, you know, at that time I was on the other side. I was a public civil servant for 27 years. I've been Olu of Iluabu now for 41 years, although I became an Oba only 3 years ago. So I've been on both sides. And I know the mindset of most politicians, and it is that Obas are potential competitors for power and influence. And so they are reluctant to give Obas a place in the Constitution. That was the problem I saw at the National Conference. Now, I hope our discussants at this meeting will address their minds to that particular problem and how to resolve, because the lecturer made it clear that the traditional institution is a pillar of our society. That when the white man came, there was an institution on the ground. By the way, on the lighter side, when the white man came, he took power from the traditional rulers. When he was going away, he forgot to return it to them. What did he do? He gave it to people he called councillors, House of Assembly people. He didn't take power from those people when he came. He took it from the Obas. That's just by the way. We are not saying that the Obas should take power, but we must find an ingenious way of integrating them into governance. As a politician, as the lecturer also said, every politician goes to the traditional ruler for endorsement. That is because they recognize that they have an influence, they have a relevance, and yet they are not integrated into governance. So how do we find a way of integrating them? At the end of this session, I will make my own suggestions, but I hope the discussants will advise their minds to, because the lecturer agreed that traditional rulers should be part of governance. The question is how. So I call on the fair discussant, there's the Attorney General of Ondo State, my friend Kayode Abdullah SAN.
Your Excellency, the Governor of Oyo State, Engineer Seyi Makinde, the son of the soil, the Governor of Ondo State, represented by my brother, Dr. Taiwo Fashion-Oti, His Imperial Majesty, the Deji of Akure, Aladetoyinbo, Odundun Asudero, the second, Kabiyesi, the Olowo Forward, the chairman of the Ondo State Council of Chiefs, and Kabiyesi, the Olu of Abo, and my brother representing the Vice President, Dr. Fashua. You're welcome, and you're welcome to Ondo State. The MC, and particularly His Excellency, has already established a well and rightful protocol. And I will only seek to, I know using the word stand on existing protocol is colloquial English, but let me use that because I think we understand it better. To stand on the existing protocol. Sir, please, before saying anything, I must confess that I come from a triplet perspective in doing this. First, as the Attorney General of the state, speaking from legal perspective in speaking for the people and government of the state. And secondly, I'm proud to call myself as the honor chief of this kingdom. And with that, thank you. I come with the cultural insight and loyalty and love to the Imperia Majesty, Deji of Akure. And finally, I come as a passionate citizen of this country, in which I have to share the experience of our people. But today, I speak simply as Kayode Ajulo, a devoted citizen and adopted son of this kingdom. And before saying anything, I think, despite the fact that I want to speak as Kayode Ajulo, we cannot take the fact that I still remain the Attorney General of this state and the administration of Ondo State when we need to interrogate the issue of traditional institution in nation building, the obstacle, the impact and prosperity. I'm sure we all agree that the government of those states under the leadership of His Excellency Dr. Lucky Orimisaye Datua Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm sure you agree with me that under the present dispensation in Ondo State, this administration has consistently honored and consulted and supported our traditional rulers as the keeper of our street, of our history and builders of our social unity. And if I must state, sir, and if I permitted, are we going to talk about the consistent salary and the local government percentage of allowance that this government is giving to our traditional rulers for them to function properly? Are we going to talk about the restoration and elevation of chieftaincy title, particularly to marginalized communities? Are we going to talk about the security partnership with our traditional rulers and in preserving royal heritage? I know I won't like to bore you with what the administration has done. The secretariat for our king are still there, standing majestically. It was recently commissioned and to the use of our traditional rulers and the people. And I think we need to do say something about that. And I believe in the time when tradition risks being overshadowed by modernity, this Ondo State has chosen collaboration over control, and I believe we deserve recognition for that. Mr. Chairman, when we talk of legal perspective, a society without law is like a drum without rhythm. The backbone of traditional institution in Ondo State is governed by the chief law, Cap 29 Law of Ondo State 2006, which outlined the roles and responsibility of our chief. Yes, I must confess, this law is stabbed with colonial legacy, and I will agree with Kabiyesi Olufalaye when he mentioned that when the colonial administration came, leaving, they refused to return what they took from the kings. And not only that, and that is why I remember recently I did a little research on all the laws, chief's law in Nigeria. And one funny thing I noticed happened to be that all of them are still stepped with that colonial charcoal. Because I query, how come we call it chief laws? Why not the king's law? How come any references to the kings, it is only chiefs? And how come when we talk about their throne, nowhere in the laws they will mention throne. What you will see is stool. And there's a big difference with the stool and with the throne. And when I did a little research, I found out that maybe because the colonial believed that it's only the king of England or queen of England that is the only king. And I think these are one of the things that has to be changed. And I believe with the support of the people, with the government, we'll change that. Now, apart from that, wanting to talk again on some issues. And I must say this constitutionally. Our constitution may not, in the way we may to our expectation, give the traditional institution rules. But I know that section 7.1, subsection 1 of the Nigerian Constitution supports local governance, which often relies on the traditional institution. Furthermore, our chief laws is valid under the Constitution, which we apply. But again, I need to say this thing, sir. In England, where we have the king and queen, they don't even have any laws, but they have king, which is quite effective. And I think I need to say this, that recently I've gone through some constitutional amendment processes. I've known that one of what has been so main issue is how to give the traditional rulers. And I believe if that one is done, fine. But I believe as a lawyer, knowing that when we talk of issue of resources of laws, apart from the Constitution, apart from the law and convention, we have traditional institution entrenched in our polity, in our system. What is expected is how we can galvanize, we can come together, have synergy with them to ensure that they continue. I take notice of the title of this topic of this discussion, role of traditional institution in building nation building, obstacle and impact and prosperity. And I think I will come with this submission that the traditional institution has feared, the government has recognized them, and that is why most of our law recently, we always have our traditional institution in most of the boards, in composition of most of all our agencies. And that is one of the whole thing. And I think what we should do is, I believe that too much is given, much is expected. And that is why, before I started talking, I said I want to speak as Kayode Ajulo, not as officials of government. So whatever I'm saying now, it will only be attributed to me, not to the state government that I'm the Attorney General. Because I'm saying this because that what is expected of our traditional rulers, yes, they've done so much. If we need to look for the examples of a traditional ruler that have done what is being expected of him is Deji of Akure. I know that is why if Deji should call us anytime, we'll be there. I've been here earlier than when one is supposed to come. But I must say this, there are some conduct of some of our traditional rulers that still leaves much to be desired. And I believe being a custodian of our culture and tradition, it is expected that whatsoever they will do is for that promotion of that culture and tradition. But unfortunately, this is the age of social medias. We see what some of these our rival leader, what they do sometime. I think if much is being asked for, they should know that much is being expected of them. And again, we have to look at one issue. When we talk of dignity, partnership, and prosperity, it depends on what the traditional rulers stand for. And like what I've mentioned earlier, our law has demonstrated and our government has demonstrated that we respect them, we place premium on them. And finally, in moving ahead, we must continue to recognize our traditional institution as partner in governance. We must ensure that laws reflect cultural reality and not towing to the colonial remnants and their thinking. We must continue to develop funding and training for traditional rulers in conflict resolution. And again, hand over legacy where tradition is respected and always believe. In closing, sir, Mr. Chairman, let's remember that traditional institutions are not relics. They are resources. They shape our future, not just to recall our past. Let us recreate a nation that honors its roots, reform its system, and reimagine tradition as a vehicle for posterity. As long as KBC continue to walk among us, they will continue to do honors to us and will continue to do honor to them. They will continue to be relevant and will be impactful. Because it is Yoruba age that the trees that forget its roots will be uprooted by the system. As long that we believe in our tradition and we are leaders, we continue to stand and stand right. And I pray that may our roots run deep, may the crown of our KBC shine bright, and may Nigeria rise on the shoulders of both modern and the ancient. I thank you for listening to me, please.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I failed to indicate that each discussant will have just 5 minutes because we have other activities scheduled for today. I now call on, so I can't see the next discussant. Please speak for 5 minutes and then hand over the microphone to the last person.
Let me start by wishing our KBC happy celebration. I want to start with this hypothesis. The case of government and traditional institution, just like a case of somebody greeting you while prostrating, within him is standing. That is the way I look at most especially the governors, not all of them. You prostrate, within you, you are standing. Of recent in Ondo State here, we listened to what one of the wife of former governor said, and somebody asked me as a professor of history, what did you see? I said, if she is saying that, why can't you ask him that some people make her own husband a governor? Somebody Somebody will use you to advance your cause in life. If you are going to be a bishop, people will gather. If you are going to be an imam, people will gather. So in other words, traditional institution and contemporary governance, they are intertwined. The governors, they need them to score political points. Even though the traditional institution, they need the governor to rejig the infrastructure in their community. So, in early 80s in Akure here, because the guest speaker dwelled much on Oyo State, which is very good for us. When I was growing up, the Akure Town Hall, there is a portion of land sold to a bank then, Afri Bank. The chairman of today, Baba Olufalai, advised the then Deji, you can't sell this thing outrightly, you can lease it out. He agreed with him. That is interrelationship between the elites and the traditional institution. That is why you see our king today reach out to people, non-Yoruba people, helping him to galvanize this state. Let me just go to my own recommendation because of our time. I was given only 5 minutes. The guest lecturer talked about indirect rule. Indirect rule is a system of administration whereby traditional institutions, traditional leaders were allowed to rule their people under the supervision of colonial rule. It was successful in the north. It was a partial success in the south. Why? Because the elite, they were not happy that the power of the traditional institution were increased. Because most of them that study outside this country, they are taking what after returning back home, they will take over government. So I'm advising our traditional institution, if you are going to achieve much, which definitely you will achieve, you must carry your people along. Traditional institution, even though the women, so that the community will move forward. One of my recommendations is that constitutional recognition, the guest speaker has spoke extensively about that. Law of succession. All these things must not be a cosmetic thing. It must be in the law of the land. It must be in the constitution, not only in the law of Ondo State or law of Oyo State. It must be in the constitution so that it's going to be binding on all of us. My fear about Nigerian law, even though pronouncement of a Supreme Court government doesn't recognize it. So I believe that this thing must be in the constitution. Regulation, prevention from politicization. When we monetize our politics, everybody will go to the governor with cap in hand. In our profession today, a professor prefers to be an essay to a local government than to be a professor in the university. When poverty is boldly written on the faces of people, definitely people will kowtow at the presence of a governor. Our governors, they are doing well, but there's one thing I love about our law. Nobody is permanent there. Our governor said something. He said he's serving about 2 years. No matter how you love him, definitely after 2 years, somebody else will come. But something enduring. He made mention of Eleruwa of Eruwa. Because, sir, you are not a typical politician. A typical politician will not allow him to come back. That is why some of us, we are proud of you, sir. The way you handle the case in Oyo, some of us outside Oyo say we do extensive reading, sir. And we have colleagues, that's why there is relative peace. There may not be absolute peace. But relative peace is still okay. And I know Oyo will continue to work stronger. Reform must be holistic. And there's what I call overbearing tendency of our government on traditional institutions. How will you say that before a king will travel, there must be a permission? That one is absurd. So I believe that if there are going to be anything that we want to put into our constitution, all those things must be looked into. As a king of a town, there must be freedom of association. We are during the military, but it's still happening now. When Emir of Kano, then, and Oba Onibushi, Chijuade, they were suspended. And they meant that the thing was in the constitution, although we believe that military can do and not do, but people are still doing it now. So I want us to look at that. And the legal framework, paramountcy, that is one thing I want the government of Ondo State. There must be paramountcy in Ondo State. Back up with law. In 1976, October 3rd, when the state was created. I am aware that Olowo, Deji, Oshemofe Obundo, they were first class over. So I want the government of Ondo State to look at that so that there will be relative peace in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
I wish to thank the last speaker for doing his best to keep within the 5 minutes given to him. The last discussant now, please, 5 minutes.
Thank you. For the sake of time, let me also skip the protocol. I want to commend the lecture of the governor of Oyo State, the keynote lecture, for his insightful content. I specifically have a takeaway from that lecture, and it is underscore of the fact that the traditional institution is older. He said it is older than the oil that was found in Nigeria. I also want to go further by saying the traditional institution is older than Nigeria. And so, no wonder, as he said, the traditional institution is part of our national heritage, and every effort must be made to keep it as it is. However, we know that before the advent of colonial rule, traditional rulers and traditional institutions had greater powers than they had when the colonialists came. Virtually all the virtues that have been spoken about as what traditional institution did for our society, you know, those values were continued when the colonialists came. But we all also know that before they came, there was resistance to their rule. You recollect the famous Oba of Benin, of Oranwen Nogbasi, how he resisted the British explorers who were coming to Benin City. You also recollect that, you know, we had very strong institutions. For instance, you had the Oyo Empire, where we had a system of governance that I was told even the British society lauded as not only autochthonous, but it was a virile system of government. You recollect we had the Oyomesi, which includes the legislature, the judiciary, and there was also a system where the executive, the Alaafin of Oyo, could be sanctioned if he goes beyond his remit. However, the colonialists attempted to whittle down the powers of the traditional institutions, and that should be taken for granted. If you look at all the constitutions they had, there were attempts to whittle down their powers, from the Macpherson Constitution to Little T. For instance, the Hugh Clifford Constitution in 1922 downgraded traditional rulers, and the Little T Constitution in 1954 also, you know, that constitution was the one that brought the federalism into Nigeria. Also, in a way, attempted to downgrade traditional institutions. The downgrade of traditional institutions in Nigeria has followed that pattern. 1960, 1963 constitutions, you recollect, the premier had so much powers and he could unilaterally, if you like, depose Obas. You remember how the Alaafin of Oyo was deposed, and the former Olowo of Owo as well. So the downgrade of traditional institutions by people in government has followed that pattern. However, don't let me bore you with history. There was a particular very instructive suggestion by the Olu of Iluabo, Chief Olufalaye, who wanted us to talk about how to inculcate traditional rulers into governance. My take may be different from every other person in that to get traditional rulers to the position they used to occupy, the traditional institution must bring back honor to its fold. As things are at the moment, not many people regard that institution. And why has regard fled the palaces? Number one is that that institution is held together by myths. There are so many myths that surround the palaces. For instance, I know that it is said that traditional rulers should not eat in the presence of ordinary mortals. Today we have obas who drink beer in the public, and they want people to give them regard. There are traditional rulers, I've seen traditional rulers in public who remove their caps. Traditional rulers are known in Yoruba land now about land grabbing. How do they want governments or even their subjects to respect them? So, if we want traditional rulers to be inculcated into the system, they must win the respect of their subjects. It is not as if, yes, those days we had traditional rulers who later became governors. The Oni of Ife was the governor general at some point during the First Republic. We should have that. We also have traditional rulers. Look at Chief Olufalaye, a renowned economist, former secretary to the government of the Federation. They have pedigrees and they should be respected. However, we have dregs among traditional rulers who are bringing dishonor to the institution. So those myths about the palaces must be restored. Only recently, you had the Awujale, the passage of the Awujale of Ijebuland. And the Awujale was buried like ordinary mortal. How do you expect that institution to be seen as different from the Lemomu? Because it was, we used to hear of the sacredness of the burials of Obas. However, the sacredness is being eroded and the institution must do all it can to bring back his honor. You recollect that in Oyo State recently, when the Alaafin of Oyo was being enthroned, the governor of Oyo State insisted that the system of Ifa enthronement of Obas must be respected. Those are the myths that surround the institution of Obaship, and for us to inculcate them into the fabrics of governance, as we did with the Oni of Ife during the First Republic, they must bring back their esteem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Your Excellencies, our Royal Fathers, ladies and gentlemen, the fourth discussant is Professor Igali, Chairman of the FUTA Board. He'll be speaking to us on the screen. He's not here in person. So I hope those in charge will now ensure that Professor Igali can have access to this audience. Again, his time is 5 minutes, like the others.
Can you hear me? Your Excellency, the Governor of Ondo State, Your Excellency, the Governor of Oyo State, my brother Sheikh Makinde, whom we consider a proud son of Bayelsa State, my father, Chief Imperia Majesty, Oba Olufalaye, whose footsteps I'm following, having myself been in public service for 35 years as a Federal Permanent Secretary. Your Majesty, my King and Monarch, the Olowo was kind to receive me in his palace and honored me greatly with a title. So I consider myself also a proud son of the great Oyo Kingdom.